Okay, guys. So quickly before the podcast, I just wanted to say that half of the podcast will probably not be available through audio through video because this little thing does not want to read my memory cards anymore. So I'm literally making this video as small as possible so I can import it.
Hello, YouTube. I haven't spoken to you in a while, have I? Look, just real quick before we go into this podcast, I just wanted to say a massive sorry for missing out on the last few. There was a couple of issues with the files, so I was not able to recover them, unfortunately. I think it's just the memory card. I think the memory card's just shot. But real quick before we get into this podcast, I just want to say hello, show my face to you guys specifically, and also what I also wanted to say is I just wanted to remind you guys that we've started a second channel called Alex Plays, and basically what that is just the channel that I will be uploading every single kind of gaming content related thing. So for example, I've already put up a few videos of the stream, you know, when me, Ryan and the rest of the boys were just kind of like roaming around for dance, kind of, you know, doing our thing. I'd appreciate it if you guys could go over, check it out. If it is not your thing, I completely get it, don't you worry, I understand. But yeah, just thought I'd let you guys know that I am actually still alive. We do have other things going on, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. It is on nutrient timing, and it is something really close to me, and, you know, important to me and stuff like that. So I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you learn something from it, and yeah, I will see you all in the next one. Have a good rest of your week, and I'll see you guys then. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Nutrition, Exercise, Sport and Training podcast, aka N.E.S.T. Welcome to episode 13. Thank you for being here. I always start this the same way, same old. Thanks for being here. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to listen to me, clearly not being able to use the English language properly today. YouTube, I apologize that the last few podcasts have not been uploaded to YouTube. However, welcome back. Now, what are we going to be talking about today? Well, today we are discussing nutrition. More than that, we're discussing nutrient timing. Okay, so nutrient timing, for those who do not know, obviously there's a lot of not speculation, but a lot of I don't know what to really call it. It's a idea that if you consume, you know, the anabolic window, if you don't consume your protein straight after your gym session, you're potentially losing all your gains, all that kind of stuff. Now, quickly before I go into this, it's not an anabolic window, it's more like a garage door, right? So I actually recently read into a guy called Sean Arendt. I read one of his pieces of work. So yeah, I read he's really good in this area. He is part of the Department of Exercise Science, and he's in the University of South Carolina, and yeah, South Carolina's actually really good for sport and exercise science. So trust what the guy says. However, I've gone through a few papers today. I've looked at a few bits of research, and more than that, I've actually listened to a few other podcasts. So let's just kick it off real quick with so this is something that really kind of frustrates me. When I say sports nutrition, what comes to your mind, right? So let's say, for example, there's all these qualifications, you know, level 3 in sports nutrition, or sports nutrition as a standalone university degree. And I wanted to say a few things because I'm not going to lie, the terms sports nutrition kind of piss me off. And I'll give you a reason to why that is. Whenever someone says sports nutrition, instantly, your mind will go to sport. But understandably, it's got the word sport in there. Obviously, your mind's going to go to sport, to football, to basketball, to any of that kind of stuff. I much prefer the term performance nutrition, right? Because here's what happens. Like, let's say, I'll just take an example of a footballer, right? Yes, a footballer does need their nutrition, especially if you're at the pro level, a footballer does need their nutrition to be on point. And I completely agree with that. That's perfectly fine. However, just the way that a pro footballer has to have their nutrition on point, a dancer has to have their nutrition on point. Someone in the military has to have their nutrition on point. If anyone is doing kind of extreme, not even environments, but if they're doing some form of extreme physiological task, right? Physiological task which, is not exactly a day-to-day life, you need adequate nutrition. So throughout this, I'm not going to class it as sports nutrition. I'm going to class it as performance nutrition. Nutrition optimal for performance. That's what we're going to call it. That's what I'm going to call it, because I'm not going to lie to you. I think sports nutrition's, let alone it's too limiting. It's also very overused. That's the word I'm looking for. It's very saturated. So it's too limiting. It's not only sports need nutrition. Like, you've got things like dancers or military, as I mentioned before. Quickly get my water. So yeah, lovely, good stuff. I might as well just keep my water open, because at this point I know for a fact I'm going to be drinking so much of it. Now, let's go to, you're 16, right? You're 16. You're in the gym. I remember doing this. I completely remember doing this, actually. I'd have a little tub, right? A little small, tiny, 5 centimeters by 5 centimeters tub. And I would put in there my protein powder, which I would have the second that I got out of the gym. And I remember for a fact that if I did not have that protein powder, I would, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't lose my shit over it, but I would definitely be like, oh my God, I forgot my shake, and this is going to suck, and I'm not going to get the best out of my workout, and X and Y and Z. And, there's this massive thing of this anabolic window. And my brother, those of you who do not know, my brother is now into the gym just as much as I am, if not more. And he, obviously, when he started getting into it, he also heard about this anabolic window, the fact that you need to have your protein as soon as you get out, and X, Y, Z, and whatever. And sorry, I'm just quickly adjusting the camera for YouTube. But is it worth having a full-on panic attack over forgetting your protein shake? See, here's the thing. It kind of depends. And I hate saying this, because someone saying it depends is a very wishy-washy answer, all right? However, it does depend. It depends on what are you trying to do? What is your goal? Obviously your goal is to improve. However, are you trying to optimize performance during, a game? Are you trying to adapt outside? Sorry, let me quickly go back to that. So, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to improve yourself in order for a competition or a game or anything like that? Or are you trying to cause adaptation outside of that scenario? So imagine you've got for example, you're a football player, right? Or you're a college football player. And when I say college, I mean university. I'm talking in American terms here. So, and you're part of the elite team. You're the first strain, you're your American university college standard, right? NCAA style shit. Borderline professional level. Let's just say semi-pro for England. For anyone English, I mean. So, when you're training, obviously you're not trying to perform there and then, you're trying to create adaptations outside of the match that you're going to be playing in order to perform well at the match. So it really depends on okay, that's annoying me. It's just a cable that's just smacking against my computer every time I move my leg. But like, for example, optimal performance during a game would be, at that point you kind of do need to stress about it a little bit, but not if you're just going to the gym, right? This is the equivalent of just going to the gym. If you're just going to the gym to work out and you don't have your protein shake on you, it doesn't matter. If we're narrowing it down, right? If we're looking at it through the lens of just the gym, right? Just the gym, just a run, just a whatever, it doesn't matter. Okay, if you're and we'll get to this later on in the podcast. However, if you're I want to say a day-to-day person. If you're a day-to-day person, the likelihood of you not having a protein shake for, half an hour after your workout, it's not going to be a big deal. All right. Trust me, it isn't. You're just faffing about at that point. If, however, you're, an elite player and, I'll go back to what I was saying earlier to American standard. Like, if you've got training, right? So let's say I know college athletes, they will have ridiculous times in the morning. So like they'll have strength and conditioning in the morning, they'll go to their classes during the day, then they'll have like football practice in the evening, like between 8 to 10. And this is like every single day. So if after your strength and conditioning, you do not have something, you're probably not going to be eating for another good 3-4 hours. So at that point, you need to look into getting something after your game in order just to kind of rejuvenate you, I guess you could say. I like that word, rejuvenate. But yeah, like I feel like when it comes to, everyday gym goers, everyone gets so hung up on, whether, oh, did I get my protein intake? Oh, did I do this? Oh my God, did I do that? Oh my God, am I going to lose my gains? No, you're not. If it's an hour, you're fine. If you don't eat anything for like 4, 5, 6 hours afterwards, then that is a little bit of an issue. But yeah, so can I, before we move on, I quickly want to touch on also another topic. And let's just say, if I say, right, the words nutrient timing, just quickly, before I carry on at all with that sentence, what pops into your head? What macronutrient pops into your head? What do you think about the second that I say that? Nutrient timing. Give you a couple of seconds. Cool. So most people, including myself, when someone says nutrient timing, my brain instantly goes to protein. Why would anything else matter? You got to hit your protein intake and you've got to hit it at a certain point. That's what pops into my head. Now, although that's not incorrect, right? Protein is a nutrient. It's not the only nutrient. It's not the only nutrient you need to focus on. What about your carbs? What about your glycogen stores? There's much more to it than just protein. And I think that's what people really need to focus on. That's what we really need to focus on. And that's hopefully what I'm gonna convey over to you over today's podcast. So let's go into a few bits that play a massive role in nutrition. Okay, so let's start off basic, right? Taste. If you do not like the taste of something, what is the likelihood you're actually going to eat it? Probably very minimal. I hate peppers. I hate them. I like second or third time I went down to Megan's. She cooked us like a chili or a bolognese or something, and it had peppers in it, and I genuinely sat there and picked out every single one of them, to the point where it kind of pissed her off. But if you don't like the taste of something, you're not going to eat it. And that's very important. And that's probably, I think, the most important one out of all of them. Taste. Number 2, you've got time, right? So do you have enough time to cook yourself a full meal? If not, you might opt for something a bit easier, a bit cheaper, a bit less nutritionally dense. Thirdly, we got cost. So obviously, you know, no one's going to go out and buy themselves a A5 Wagyu steak every night, unless you kind of can afford that. Jeff Bezos, I'm looking at you directly. And lastly, we got goal, right? So it depends on what your goal is. If you want to be, right, a bodybuilder, then protein's a lot more important to you than it is to a footballer. And again, I will go through this a little bit later on in the podcast. However, here is the thing that I think everyone needs to focus on, right? And that is just that last goal bit. Because again, going back to what I was saying earlier, like the whole performance or adaptation, think about it this way, okay? Do you need, obviously everyone needs optimal performance for their competition. I'm going to use the word game, match, and competition. Like I'm going to replace each one with the other whenever I fancy. I'm probably going to use competition mostly though. So optimal performance during a competition, okay? Is that the goal, or is adaptation outside of that competition the goal? Because I'm not going to lie to you, they probably sound the same. Okay, so adaptation outside of that competition will cause optimal performance during that competition. Now, here's nutritionally, I want you to think about this. I want you to think about it this way, right? Take out all of the skill, right? So out of a footballer, take out their speed, take out their, like, you know, dribbling ability, take out everything. They're just a sack of intestines, skin, and bones at this point. All right, I want you to think of it this way. And what I want you to think, okay, is nutritionally, would you prefer to have more energy during the game or during the competition, should I say, or would you want to create adaptations outside of that game and sacrifice a little bit of energy during that? That's the easiest way I could possibly put it. They do sound very similar, and you know, there's not much I could have done about that. But think about it this way: would you rather give up a little bit of energy for the competition in order for you to create a few adaptations, such as, you know, speed, right? Agility, change of direction, stuff like that. Now, because I'm going to be feeding someone, right? As a let's just say as a personal trainer, I'm going to feed someone very differently if they're trying to, I don't know, not lose a little bit of weight, because that's too different. If they're a competitor, right? Let's say a dancer or a gymnast comes to me and says, look, I need to be able to dance for 5 minutes at a really high intensity. And same with the gymnast. I need to be able to do this, this, and this at a really high intensity for 5 minutes. Right. Okay. Well, in that case, you're going to need a fuck ton of carbs. You're going to need a lot. The day before your competition, 3 hours before your competition, you're going to need a load of carbs. If it's for 30 minutes, if it's for 5 to 6 minutes, I'm going to load the shit out of you with simple carbs. And again, we'll go through that a little bit later. And the reason why I didn't say complex carbs and I specifically said simple. We'll go through this in a bit. However, you know, if someone comes up to me and says, "Oh, I'm, you know, I want to do bodybuilding, and I want to be like a men's physique competitor," I'll be like, okay. In that case, you need to focus a lot more on your protein, especially if you're in a cutting season. You need to focus a lot more on your protein and a lot less on your carbs and stuff like that, right? So that's what I mean by optimal performance during a game, right? So for example, dancers or gymnasts where those 5 minutes will be the be all end all, or adaptations outside of that competition, aka a bodybuilder, a men's physique competitor, right? Their muscles are the main thing that will get them that first place. Don't get me wrong, yeah, routine, all that kind of jazz outside will also get them a good placing, but primarily, what is it? It's the physique. That's the whole point. Need to drink more water, man, Jesus. Now, let's go into this concept, right? Into the concept of specifically the anabolic window. A little bit of history. All right, and I know it's boring. In the 80s, John Ivey and Rob Portman had posed the idea of the anabolic window. Now, that basically means that 45 minutes, they found that 45 minutes post-exercise, amino acids and glucose were pushed into the muscles and further enabled muscle protein synthesis. Or should I say further encouraged muscle protein synthesis. Well, what they didn't look at, and you know what a lot of studies don't look at is what about the rest of the day, right? Yeah, sure, like they can train for an hour, however, and 45 minutes afterwards, that's great, but we're only focusing on 2 hours out of the 24. What happens in the other 22? I want to know what it is that my athlete is doing for the other 11/12 of their day, right? What are they going and booze drinking? Because if they're booze drinking and binge eating, then we've got a fucking problem, right? It's not just, so that's the annoying thing. Like, as much as their research was I don't want to say groundbreaking, but even though it was really good research, and it started off this catalyst, or they were the catalyst for this kind of research. At the same time, I want to know what's going on outside. You're giving with that, you're giving me a snapshot. You're not giving me a rolling feed. You're giving me a snapshot of what's happening during that day. And that, as a coach, as an athlete, as a coach, as a manager of a team, as a strength and conditioning coach, anything, that is not up to standard. That's not what you need. So what about the rest of the day? And let me put this into perspective, right? An MMA athlete, right, can train up to 4 times per day. 4 times, right? And I don't mean 4 lots of 15-minute, 30-minute. I mean 4 times as in 4-hour-long training sessions. They've got multiple disciplines to go to. They've got Muay Thai, right, which is a lot of punching, kicking, all that kind of stuff. Is a lot of standing up work. Then they've got judo. Then they've got Brazilian jiu-jitsu. They have got at least 3 different disciplines to go to. And then if they want to go into further, karate or whatever, cool, perfect, that's fine. You do you, kudos. But that's at least 3 disciplines that they need to train. Someone like McGregor, I'd hate to see how much he actually does in a day. And McGregor, you could argue, because he's the best, he could probably take his foot off the gas a little bit, and he would probably still be the best because his fighting technique is incredible. I'm not saying do that, because every moment that you're sleeping, someone else is working and all that shit like that. But how, if let's say you are an MMA athlete, right, and you train 4 times a day, 3 times a day on 3 different disciplines, how do you bring your A game to every single one? How do you perform, let's say you go to your first training session at 8 a.m. at 9 a.m., right? Let's say you're there 9 till 11, right? You're there 9 till 11, you're training at 100%. How do you then go from 9 till 11 to your 1 till 3 and train as hard, and then go to your 5 till 7 and train as hard? How would this happen? I can barely train once or twice a day at 150%, right? Let's say with American football, I train I train 3 times a week at 100%. I literally leave everything out on the field and there's nothing more that I could have done. I know that as soon as I get off that pitch, that's as much as I could have done. Imagine doing that 3 times a day. Sorry, I just hit my mic. Imagine doing that 3 times a day and still having energy to do it all over again. And the secret to that is at this point, it's not even nutrient timing, it's timing of nutrients. And you can say that is the same thing, but it's not. Nutrient timing is, let's say eating protein 45 minutes after your gym session. Timing of nutrients is, when are you eating? What's your plan? Sure, you go from 9 until 11, but what are you doing? When are you eating after 11? When are you eating before 9? Are you waking up at 6? Is that when you're having breakfast? Are you then having a pre-game? Are you having a pre-session meal? Are you having a post-session meal? Like, that is how you go to like 3 sessions a day, and you literally just have to keep feeding and feeding and feeding over and over and over and over and over. I'm really interested to see how many calories in total someone like McGregor would consume. Now, before how we were talking about timing of nutrients, it's weird because there's so much evidence nowadays, right, where there's evidence that shows that even the order of macronutrients consumed within a meal has an impact on how they're metabolized within your body and stuff like that. So like, let's say you've got a roast dinner, easiest one out of all of them, because everyone can imagine a roast. Would you eat, let's say, I don't know, you've got roast chicken, roast beef. Would you eat the meat first? Would you eat the potatoes first? Would you eat the veggies, Yorkshire pudding? Like, what would you eat first? And apparently there's evidence that shows that depending on what you eat first and second and third and whatever, depending on the order you eat the different foods, it changes the way that they're metabolized. And I'd be really interested to have a look further into that. But like, that is insane. The fact that I can decide, right? You know what? I'm going to leave my chicken for last because I really like it. And I really want, after you eat a certain food, it's got an aftertaste, and then that aftertaste can be ruined by something else. So like, let's say if you really like a certain food's aftertaste, you tend to save it for last. But what if eating the chicken first would have done me a lot better in terms of how my body metabolized it, right? How would have it how would have it improved my game as such? And I think that, please do not take this as it has an incredible, massive impact, and if you don't do it, then you're leaving gains on the table or something. We're talking about the smallest amount of the smallest amount of importance, right? The minimal most amount of importance here. Because here we go. This is how I'd explain timing, right? So think of it as you've got a cake, all right? You've got to make a cake, and in that cake, you put in eggs, you put in your sugar, you put in your flour, you put your butter, you put your cocoa, right? Chocolate cake, by the way, obviously, the best cake out of all of them. Why would you spend the majority of the time on the icing or on the actual cake? That's my question. Would you spend majority of time on creating the icing, making sure it's perfect, it's just the perfect amount of sweet and sugar and all that kind of crap? Or would you make sure that the cake is moist, is not dry, it's nice, it's fudgy on the inside, when you bite into a proper good cake? Which one would you focus on? And hint, there's only one right answer. You're having chocolate cake. You're not having chocolate icing. Okay, that's not the name of the dessert. You're having chocolate cake, right? The icing is something that would make it better, but it's not something that would make or break it. So your sugar is your volume of your training. Your eggs are your intensity. The flour is the frequency. The butter is your calories and your hydration. Cocoa is your sleep. Are you getting 8 hours sleep a day? Are you getting sufficient rest? The icing is then when you time your nutrients and your calories around your training. That is the way to think about it. That it's just the cherry on top, or the icing on top in this case. It's not the be all end all. It is a slight benefit. That's the easiest way of me explaining it. Now, I quickly want to go over a little bit of research that was done by Begged Saltine. And I will, as always, I have got the paper right next to me. It's Begged Saltine. This was done in 1973. Right, so this is a very, very old paper. My guy, Begged Saltine, was on the Department of Physiology in Stockholm, Sweden. And he did a study on metabolic fundamentals in exercise. And basically, for me to sum up what he found, and this is the only bit we're going to be looking at, because this is very important. Going back to what I was saying about, footballers and stuff like that, needing their carbohydrates. So he found out that 9 soccer players were studied before, during, and after their game, right? So anyone who in England, football players, sorry, YouTube lost you a little bit there. Anyone in England, football players, anyone in America, the soccer players, they were studied before, during, and after a game, and measurements were obtained of muscle glycogen content. Now, what is this? This is the amount of glycogen that is in your muscles. I know that's very self-explanatory. Basically, it's think about it as carbs in your muscles. That's the easiest way of me explaining it. Now, there was he split into 2 groups, right? Into a group of 5 and a group of 4. And at the start, the group of 5 people had 96 millimoles per kilogram of glycogen concentration. Okay, so this to you guys, this means nothing, but bear with me, it will make sense. So he had 96 millimoles per kilogram of glycogen concentration, and the group of 4 had 45. Okay, so before this, these are the key numbers that I want you to take away from this. Before, 96 and 45. Okay, just remember those 2 numbers, 96, 45. After the game, the group of 5 that had 96 at the start, they had 9 at the end. And the group of 4 that had 45 at the start, they had 0 at the end. What does this mean? This means that after a match, right, of 90 minutes, a 90-minute match, okay, the first group had lost 90% of their glycogen concentration. The second group had lost 100% of their glycogen concentration. And I rounded it down to 97% because I don't think it would be fully 0. I reckon that there would be at least 0.4 or 0.3 or something like that. They just rounded it down. So that shows you, right, as a football player, that shows you how much carbohydrates actually matter. And at the moment, right, we've got, let's just say, Southampton FC. I want to see their schedule because I know at the moment Premier League teams are playing 2 times a week. Okay, and I want to see how soon those games are. So we had 20th of February, right, which would have been the Saturday. And then we also had yesterday, so 23rd. So you're leaving 3 days in between that. That is fine. Recent studies have actually shown that muscle glycogen concentration can take upward of 48 hours to refill back to full. So as long as you're over 2 days, that's fine. That's great. However, I've heard reports that they're in the US, a lot of women's college teams will play. They'll play. What is it? They will play. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Yeah, Jesus. They'll play 2 games over the weekend. So they'll play one on the Friday. They'll have Saturday off, then one on the Sunday. They'll play a Friday, Sunday, right? At that point, you're not leaving 48 hours. You're not. You're barely leaving 48 hours. You're probably the best chance is that it's not 48 hours. Even if it is, you're leaving a very small window. I think it was old evidence that has shown. Old evidence showed that it was 48 hours. Newer evidence has showed that it's upward of 3 days, or something along those lines. And, if you're going to be playing the Friday night, and then you're also going to be playing, Sunday evening, mate, the second you get off on that Friday, you better be eating. The second you get home, you need to have a fat off meal. Saturday, you need to be eating as much as you possibly can. And Sunday, eat a decent amount. Oh, that's my draw. Lol. Thought it was something else. So let's take this back to reality as such, right? We're not all elite college athlete players, right? We're not. So let's take it back to the real world. Will a beginner or an everyday Joe, right, gain a lot from meal timing? Not timing your meals, not timing all that, your nutrients, right? Eating 5, 6, eating 5 to 6 minutes after you've finished your session, having your protein shake within 30 minutes of finishing your session. Doesn't matter if you hit your metabolic window. The answer is probably not. Even if it gives you a 1% difference, do you really think 1% for the average person is gonna matter? No, it won't. You need to make sure that your training is in place. You need to make sure that your calories and nutrients are being hit to start with. You need to make sure your hydration is on point. You need to make sure your sleep is on point. If after that you want to take it to the next level, because, why not? You want to be able to brag. Then you can start nutrient timing. Until then, don't, because it's pointless. It won't give you, it might just give you a 1% increase. And for normal people, 1% is not, it's not substantial. It really isn't. However, if you are an elite performer, right, if you compete at, again, I'm going to say college because this is American. In the UK, we do not have this kind of stuff. If you compete at NCAA, and I don't really know what the smaller categories are, but if you compete in college football, college soccer, college basketball, college anything, right, and you're in serious competition, and you've got an opportunity to make it pro, hell yeah, a 1% difference. Are you shitting me? Right? If you do not take that extra 1%, you're stupid. And I'm sorry, but you are. Because someone else will take your spot. Just to put it into perspective, right? meal timing is 1% at best. I don't think it's even 1%. I don't think it would make a difference of 1%. However, let's put this into perspective, right? Usain Bolt broke his own 100-meter record of 9 seconds and 69 milliseconds by 6 milliseconds. That's 0.06 of a second, right? Do you know what the difference do you know what that difference is? It's a 0.6% difference. That's how much. That's like 0.6%. That's what this guy beat his world record by. 0.6%. Let's just say let's just say he hadn't gotten enough sleep that night, right? That he'd have been screwed. 0.6%, you kidding me? If you have even the slightest amount less energy, that's gone. So if you are, a professional player or looking to go into professional playing or anything like that, you really need to realize exactly what you need to do, okay, in order to hit those ridiculous, crazy numbers. I'm a little bit conscious of time. That's fine. We've still got another 20 or so minutes now. We go to the question of, should you eat before or after your training or your what should you eat before or after your training or competition? And I'm going to say it again. It depends on your activity, right? So let's just say before your competition or before your training, what should you eat? This is where it comes in when I say it depends. It depends on how long that training or that competition will last. Is it going to be for over 30 minutes? Or is it going to be for under 30 minutes? Because here's the thing. If it's going to be for over 30 minutes, you're going to want complex carbohydrates, right? You're going to want complex carbs that will just keep burning that fuel for a little bit longer. Think of complex carbs as diesel, right? They burn for longer. They give you more miles as such, okay? They give you more energy over a longer period of time. If your session or your competition is under 30 minutes or equal to, then you're better off having simple carbs. And what you might be saying is, hang on a sec, Alex, but complex carbs are better off for you. They provide more energy over a longer period of time. Yes, that is correct. You're fully right there. However, a meta-analysis of simple carbs, a meta-analysis found that simple carbs saw a decrease in alertness and an increase in fatigue after 30 minutes. Before those 30 minutes, you are basically on a sugar high, right? You're basically, your fatigue is pretty much non-existent. I'm not going to say that, because if you're doing a really high intensity sport, then it will be existent. But if you're going to be on for less than 30 minutes, then I recommend you take a simple sugar, anything that is not substantial. And by the way, this is about 2 hours before. I'd say 2 hours, because digestion normally takes between 3 and 6 hours. So ideally, if you have it down you by 1.5 to 2 hours before your training or your competition, you're grand. So yeah, if you're doing a short competition or a short training session, then simple carbs will be fine. If you're doing a longer lasting one, then complex carbs are definitely your way to go. That meta-analysis found that it was between 30 and 60 minutes that the simple carbs lasted, but I thought I'd err on the side of caution and simply just go for the shorter option. You don't want to be in the middle of a competition and then all of a sudden, because you listen to a Greek guy on a podcast say that, simple carbs are great for up to 60 minutes and you get a crash at 40, it's not going to be ideal for you. So go for complex carbs just in case. Now, what about after? We've spoken about what you do before the session or before your training or before your competition. What about after? Again, it depends. Something like football or something like gymnastics, something like dancing, which is aerobic and it's taxing, that you're going to need lots of carbs and some protein. Why are you going to need carbs? Because if you're using your aerobic system, most likely the likelihood is you're going to be using up a lot of glycogen. And when you start using up a lot of glycogen, means your glycogen stores are getting depleted. So you need to refill those bad boys up. Especially, as we said earlier, if you're playing 2 games within like 3 days, then you need to start eating, right? You need to eat. However, on the other hand, if you're doing things like, resistance training, which is not so I want to say it's not so taxing on your body. It's still taxing, but it's not aerobically taxing. Ideally, you want enough protein, some fats and carbs. Now, what splits are we talking here? I would say something like football, you are looking at a carb to protein split of 65 to 35%. Throw in a little bit of fats in there as well, why not? But 65 to 35%, that's probably going to be your best bet. And if you want to throw in a little bit of fats, you can do a 60-30-10 split or something like that. Completely up to you. Finally, resistance training, as I said, the split there between proteins, fats, and carbs, ideally you want to be looking at about a 50-20-30 split, so 50% protein, 20% fats, and then 30% carbs, just because at that point, muscle protein synthesis is going to be at a jacked up high, so ideally you want your protein to be getting synthesized straight away. And now, before I sign off, okay, that thing is not going to close, that's fine. Before I sign off, I've also got a study here, which was conducted in 2008. So it's a little bit more recent than the 1970s one, and it's from it says International Society of Sports Nutrition Position Stand, nutrient timing. And they have been super thorough with this, and they've given a summary of during exercise nutrient findings. So what have they found in terms of the different macros and how they affect, being taken during exercise, which is really big because let's say, if you're going to be going into overtime after those 90 minutes in a football game, you would have needed something at halftime. So summary of during. Carbohydrate availability during exercise and muscle glycogen levels are major determinants of endurance performance. So what this basically means is that how much carbohydrates you have had determines how much, determines your endurance performance. Will it be good? Will it be poor? Carbohydrate administration becomes even more important when glycogen levels are low at the onset of exercise. What we were saying earlier, after a football game, you're probably going to be around 90 to 95% depleted of all your muscle glycogen. This is when you need to feed up on your carbohydrates. As exercise duration increases beyond 60 minutes, exogenous sources of carbohydrates become important to maintain blood glucose and muscle glycogen stores. What is this saying? This is saying that any form of exercise over 60 minutes, this is where you need outside sources of carbs. This is where they become very important in order to maintain your blood sugar and how much glycogen is in your muscles. This carbohydrate source, the one that we're talking now, the one that is very important to maintain blood glucose and muscle glycogen stores, should supply between 30 to 60 grams of carbohydrates per hour. So there you go. 30 to 60 grams of carbs per hour. That's ideally what you want to be having. Now, mixing different forms of carbs, aka simple, complex, all that kind of stuff, has been shown to increase oxidation from 1 to a 1.2 or 1.75 of carbohydrates per minute, which is associated with an improvement in time trial performance. That is not so relevant for us. However, glucose, fructose, sucrose, and maltodextrin. Those who do not know, glucose is a very simple form of carbohydrate. Fructose is the carbohydrate that you get from fruits, and sucrose is more like sugar. It's a very simple carbohydrate. Maltodextrin, I've got no bloody idea. They can also be used in combination, but large amounts of fructose is not recommended. So basically, do not eat large amounts of fructose, as it increases the likelihood of gastrointestinal problems, which not everyone wants. I'd say no one wants that, actually. Now, the addition of protein to carbs at a ratio of 3 to 4 to 1. So let's say you have 1 gram of protein for every 3 grams or 4 grams of carbs. It's been shown to increase endurance performance in both acute exercise and subsequent bouts of endurance exercise. So if you're looking to get the maximum amount out of your nutrition, then I would definitely say follow this. So for every carbohydrate for every 3 to 4 carbs you consume, add in a gram of protein, and it will increase endurance performance for acute and longer exercises. Now, let's go on to what is post-exercise nutrient. Post-exercise, and this means within 30 minutes, consumption of carbs. So this study here found that after 30 minutes of exercise, consuming carbs at about 8 to 10 grams of carbohydrates per kilogram per day, that is a very long sentence, has been shown to stimulate muscle glycogen resynthesis. So let's just say, that and by the way, YouTube, you're probably going to benefit a lot more from this. So, because I'm using a little whiteboard. So let's just say, for example, I am a 85 kilo male, right? 85 kg. And I'm going to be following what this guy here, or what these guys here have said. So we're going to have, let's just say 9 grams per kilogram per day. So post-exercise, consumption of carbohydrates at high dosages. So we're going to times 85 by 9, which is going to give us 765, right? So ideally, you want to be consuming similar amounts to what, so a high dosage of carbs after your training session. I'm not saying consume 765 grams of carbs after your training session, because that would be about 3,000 calories. But consume a large amount of carbs after your training session. Adding protein to carbohydrates at a ratio of approximately 3 to 1 has been shown to stimulate glycogen resynthesis, which is what we following what it was said earlier, we could kind of see this happening. So 1 protein to 3 carbs helps you resynthesize glycogen to a better extent than what carbohydrates would do alone, which we love to see. Now, post-exercise injection immediately or after 3 hours post-exercise of amino acids, primarily essential amino acids, have been shown to stimulate robust increase in protein synthesis in the muscles. The additions of carbs may increase protein synthesis even more. So what this is saying is immediately after exercise or 3 hours after exercise, you would want to be consuming some form of complete protein. And again, this protein can be a shake, because shakes have got all the essential amino acids. It can be meat, or any other vegan sources which have got a complete amino acid profile. That increases protein synthesis. The addition of carbohydrates, as I said, may also increase it a little bit more. Finally, nearly finally, during prolonged exercise resistance training, post-exercise consumption of carbs and protein supplements in varying amounts have been shown to stimulate improvements in strength and body composition when compared to control, placebo, or carbohydrate-only conditions. So what this is saying is, when you have been doing resistance training for a long time, post-exercise consumption of carbs as well as protein supplements can improve strength and body composition. That is an interesting claim. I'd like to go back and revisit that one. Finally, the addition of creatine, 0.1 grams per kilogram. Sorry, 0.1 grams of creatine per kilogram per day may facilitate even greater adaptations to resistance training. So let's just say, again, I'm going to go with my own weight, 85 kilos, times that by 0.1, 0.1, thank you. 0.1, thank you. Jesus Christ, that was way too hard. So 8.5 grams of creatine a day. So adding the creatine to a carbohydrate and protein supplement may facilitate even greater adaptations to training, to resistance training. So what is the kind of takeaway message so from today? So what I would really like to stress, and what I feel like I have to stress, because I know if I don't, a lot of people can always take this the wrong way, is I'm by no means a nutritionist, all right, or a doctor or anything like that. I'm not a medical professional either. What I do have is I've got a very, very big passion in sport, exercise, and nutrition. So that's disclaimer real quick. Okay, probably should have been at the start of the video or the podcast. But anyway, secondly, what I would really like to stress out is the fact that nutrient timing will not have a great impact if you're not a professional. Okay, so is there any point in you stressing about this? No, there isn't. Will it make really big substantial gains? It won't. Will it help you in some way, shape, or form? Yeah. Will it help you substantially? No. So unless you're a professional, then do not worry about this kind of stuff. As I said, go back to the cake example. This is just the icing. If you have everything else in check and you want to take it that step further, then feel free and, let me know how it goes. Tweet me on Twitter at AlexAmorg, or DM me on Instagram at Amorginos. However, if you do not have the basics down, if you don't have your sleep down, if you don't have your training right, if you don't have your frequency, your volume, your intensity, or even your carbs, even your calories and your hydration, not your carbs, even your calories and your hydration in check, then you're trying to run before you can walk. Actually, no, you're trying to fly before you can even baby crawl, if that's even a thing. I don't know what that is. But if you don't have the others in check, don't worry about this, okay? If you're a coach or you're any form of fitness or coaching professional and you're listening and you're saying, oh, okay, so what you're telling me is that, you know, if my athletes aren't professionals, then I don't need to worry about this. No, what I'm saying is if your athletes are competing at a high level, you need to worry about this. If it doesn't harm you, why would you not try it? If it doesn't harm you or cost you anything, why would you not try it? You don't have anything to lose. Try it with your athletes. And, you know, if you are a coach, quickly, can I just say a few bits? If you are a coach, and you do have athletes that, you know, you're training with before they go to school or before they do this or before they do that, please do tell them, to eat something after the training session, be it a shake, be it whatever, be it fucking, no, not kale juice, but be it like a basic shake, right, that you see on TikTok or something, where it's like peanut butter, oats, banana, milk, protein powder. Make something like that, because it gives them a good start to the day, and those kids are probably not going to eat for another 2 to 3 hours. So if you are a coach, right, and I've seen this a lot of times with I used to work as a lifeguard at my local leisure center. So what I saw a lot of coaches come in with their squads, so with their swimming squads, and they would have a training session at 6 a.m. The second the center opened, they'd be the first people in. They'd have a training session at 6 a.m. And after that, the coach would just dismiss them, wouldn't say anything about food, wouldn't say anything about any of that, and they'd just go to school. Guys, again, if you are a coach, make sure after you've had that training session with your team, make sure to every single time stress that they need to go and get some form of food after that training session. It will make their lives so much easier, so much better, and it will make them perform so much better. And obviously that will then look good on you. Raise, you know what I mean? A little bit of a senior position. No? Okay, cool. Just me. But yeah, it will help them. It will help you. It will make the team as a whole perform that little tiny bit better. And again, if you are training at 6 o'clock in the morning or at 8 o'clock in the morning before schools have even opened, you should be looking at it. You're at a level now where you should be looking at it. So with that being said, I'm going to finish off the podcast here. Thank you to everyone for listening. I thoroughly appreciate everyone's support on this. Send this to someone who you think would probably benefit from this. If you have got group chats, you know, like the I don't know, if you've got gym group chats, diet group chats, any form of group chat that you got, send this in there if anyone's interested, or send this to anyone who you know would be interested. I'm looking at you. And yeah, thank you guys for listening. I thoroughly hope you have enjoyed. I hope you've learned something new. This has been a very big thing for me. I really like the idea of this. You know, it's something that I not resonates in me, but it's something that I'm very passionate about. So yeah, thank you everyone for listening. I hope you have a good rest of your week, and I will be definitely see you next week for another episode of the N.E.S.T podcast. See you then. I really like the idea of this. You know, it's something that I not resonates in me, but it's something that I'm very passionate about. So yeah, thank you everyone for listening. I hope you have a good rest of your week, and I will be definitely see you next week for another episode of the N.E.S.T podcast. See you then.